Are you one of those parents who feel like the school system failed us? Now what do we do? Now what? You know what I mean? There are a number of parents with special needs kids that feel like, okay, so I see special needs kids out here doing the daggone thing. They are out here. They have greatness written all over them. Maybe they didn't have the greatest whatever growing up. They didn't have all the skills. They didn't have all the abilities. But now, after graduation and into their college years, they have this amazingness going on. How do they how did the parents have access to whatever resources or whatever for for their kids? Now what? I want to talk about how to prepare your special needs child for life after graduation. Okay? So, the first thing I want you to do is I want you to educate yourself on what's available in your area. Okay? So let me just tell you, I talked maybe a week or so ago in another video about types of programs. Okay, I don't know what that video is called. You have to go back and watch all of them. You'll find it. Okay, but the thing is that you have to educate yourself. You have to really educate yourself because what you can't do is depend on the school system to tell you all the things. Okay, your child's IEP is useless. Now that is a video that I did. You have to go and watch that. The child's IEP is not going to prepare them for life after graduation. But you have to do it. You have to do the legwork. You have to educate yourself on what's available in your area. You have to visit places. You have to read. You have to research. You have to speak to other families. Word of mouth is the best. Let me tell you this. Let me tell you what I learned about my son. He's 25. He has autism. And what I learned is that not everything is Googleable. Okay? Wouldn't it be great if you could just go to Google and just type in special needs programs and activities, in my area, in my city, and everything comes up? What I learned in 25 years of raising my son with autism is that 80% of all the things that I got him into was word of mouth. And the more programs you get him into, your child into, the more you'll find out, the more you'll learn about because you're interacting with more people. You know what I mean? I remember that whenever the high school that he went to here in Georgia gave me maybe a 4-page list of resources. And I think I interacted with maybe 4 or 5 programs in that list. But whenever I interacted with those programs, for each program we were connected with, we found out about more programs when we were in those programs, and then so on and so forth. You know what I mean? It's all word of mouth. You have to connect with people. You have to do your research, and then when you do your research, find out the pros and cons about each program and activities in every opportunity, right? The next thing I want you to do is I want you to consider eligibility barriers, okay? Not all programs are created equal. You heard me say that before. But you have to understand that there are eligibility barriers. So, for instance, I would say at least half of the programs that I found while I was out here as a parent advocate for my son, at least half of those programs he was not eligible for. Either he was overqualified or underqualified. What do I mean? Either he wasn't disabled enough, or he was too disabled. He didn't have enough skills. It depends on the program. So some programs are very, very specific. So, like, for instance, let me give you an example. Hassan, this happened like last summer, okay? He was invited to a day program, and they had all these activities. They had these field trips, and he was qualified. And so they were like, well, he's invited to come spend the day with us, no charge for the first day, just to see how he interacts with our group and how our group interacts with him. You know what I mean? We get to meet everybody, and we did a tour, and they got to meet Hassan and everything, right? So we go and do the tour, and it's a great facility. It's a great facility. You know what I mean? They had all these activities. They had cooking classes. They had art classes. They had, great staff. They seemed to do really well with these young adult um, students with special needs, right? So at the end of the tour, right, I was like, Hassan, how'd you like it? He was like, eh. Right? I was like, Hassan, you didn't like it? And he says, Mom, um, it doesn't seem like the people here know what's going on. And I was like, what do you mean? I knew what he meant. Hassan was overqualified. He was more mature. He had been in programs with people who or disabled kids that had more functioning than him. Okay, and so he wanted to be in a more functioning environment. That's what he meant, but he didn't really know how to say it, right? Hassan catches buses, regular MARTA buses and trains to Georgia State University, and he hangs out with regular Georgia State University students. Now, he's in a special needs program at Georgia State, but he interacts with regular students. So, whenever you put him in a special needs program, a day program, with, special needs students that function at a lower capacity. I hate to say it like that because I don't want to make it seem like they're less than, but they need more assistance than he does. He was just like, I want to be challenged more. Does that make sense? I don't want to make it seem like we're comparing, but he's on a higher end of the spectrum. I'll say it like that. And he was just like, I don't, I want to be challenged more. So that's what I mean whenever you want to consider the eligibility barriers. In some programs, your child, depending on their level of functioning, they're either too functional or not functioning enough. Does that make sense? You want to also consider their age restrictions, waiting lists. You can be on a waiting list for 5 years. If your child is 18 years old, and in order for them to qualify for this program, they have to be 25. You might want to put them on, might want to go ahead and sign them up, because if that waiting list is a 5 year or a 3 year waiting list, you might want to go ahead and put them on there. Okay? You might want to consider state policies. And like I said, does this child meet the criteria? That's why you want to, visit for the day. You want to ask a lot of questions, right? But also, thirdly, I want you to understand that you need a plan. When your child is in grade school and they go to special needs classes and they have special needs teachers, you may love, when my son started grade school, I loved his school. I loved the school. I loved the staff. I loved how they nurtured him in that environment. And we were so blessed to have good staff, good kids. He was in, he had a good group of kids who, good people to surround him all through grade school, even when we moved to Atlanta. You know what I mean? Good people who understood his needs and they nurtured him well, right? But when he leaves high school, when your child leaves high school, you have to understand you have to have a plan. And I told you before that whenever he got to be about 12 or 13 years old, they would say, what's the plan after high school? And as a parent, you're like, I thought you were going to help me with that. And they don't. And my plan for my son was go to college. You have to start planning. What does that look like? You have to start that research sooner than later. You have to have a plan. You have to set goals and you have to execute them. If your plan is for your child to be independent one day, You have to start that plan. And even if it doesn't look now like they'll ever be independent, you have to think that if they're ever going to be independent, I have to start with the end in mind and work backwards so that I can put that plan in place. You have to make sure you have a support system for you and for your child. You have to have a support system. Okay? I can talk about that for a half hour. And lastly, you want to keep in mind that the world is changing. There are shifts in our government, and programs will not or may not always be readily available. We cannot always, maybe in the near future, depend on programs. So we have to be able to support each other and connect to see how our children can be nurtured moving forward. Okay. If you want more information on that, if you want to stay connected to me, go to my website, TerayWard.com. I'll drop my website in the chat. Until then, thanks for watching. Like this video, subscribe on YouTube, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.